That's the
Okay, so today we're going to talk about disadvantages. Okay.
how to create a dissonance.
Sort of, yeah. How to debate a dissent. So this. Okay, so can anyone tell me what the point of a dissent is?
So that you're like opponent's case, like you're gonna have to say that the plan has advantages. We have to come back and say no, your plan has a lot of disadvantages that outweigh the advantages.
Correct, yeah. The key part there is that they outweigh the advantages. That there are more negative consequences than there are positive consequences to passing the act. Correct.
So the disadvantage would be something negative, right?
Yes.
Do you have an extra pencil?
Nope. Anyone have an extra pencil or pen that Avanish could use?
There's pen right there.
Oh,
Okay, pencil.
can I use
Okay,
it?
great.
Yeah, honestly, what is
So, purpose through negative consequences outweigh. Okay, and there are many different ways to do this. Disads will not always look the same. There are kind of different genres of disads that may have similar arguments. So, for example, some types of disads include a politics disad, which is saying what the political consequences of doing the plan outweigh the positive consequences, any positive consequences of the app. So these could be things that are more related to the process of the plan. So it's just saying passing such a controversial law in Congress right now is bad because some other good thing is trying to be passed, and that takes away political capital or just a lot of momentum for a certain bill, and then that bill is really good and is not got productive. Yes.
Like I think that I don't know if this happened like yesterday or something, but Congress passed like basically like banning arms sales to Saudi Arabia.
That was only in the House.
It passed the U.S. Senate.
Yeah,
really?
It was only in the Senate, and
So, like,
Trump is highly expected
gonna
to
be
veto
And
it.
it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have an
Did
override.
they ban or reduce?
It was what happened was the Senate tried to block Trump doing arms sales to Saudi Arabia, and Trump invoked a national emergency, which allowed him to continue with $8 billion worth of arms sales to Saudi Arabia in the name of like national security.
I guess
Iran's aggression was the national.
Yeah,
correct.
What she
Wait,
caused. Wait, let me remind you.
then-
What she caused. It's
Yeah.
true to the Iran deal.
Yes.
So you're saying you're declaring a national emergency for a threat that you caused that didn't exist before this.
Okay, so that's something like so if Trump didn't like for some reason doesn't veto this, the app is like almost happened. It's only $8 billion worth, so it's like not everything.
Only.
Didn't that guy?
We have lots.
I know, we have like 50
Trump's
billion.
big plan in the Middle East is sell
$110
$110 billion.
Wait.
It's
only
going.
Remember what that guy said during the
And that
lecture that's going to
hasn't
take
even
like
gotten
5 years to be effective?
Yeah.
Honestly, like I can't
$1
find
billion
that
a lot.
evidence anywhere.
Okay, so yeah, like I was saying, the political consequences can look something like an agenda item. There can be support for it, and then when the plan happens, Congress people will drop off support for a bill, and that would be bad. Or there would be elections disads, like the 2020 disad, which would be considered a politics disad, saying that if the plan happens, it means that Trump is going to win, and that's bad, right? There are also more things related to like the functioning of the plan as opposed to like the process, like the political process of the plan. So those are things like the allies disad, the deterrence disad, just like the actual function of putting weapons in the hands of, say, Saudi Arabia is bad, right? For deterrence reasons, for allies reasons, right? So disads can look like a lot of different things, right? but all of them will have the same 4 parts. Anyone remind me all 4 parts of a disadvantage, Sophia?
Uniqueness, link, internal link, impact.
Yes. So I'm just gonna uniqueness, link, internal link. So any disadvantage will have all of these 4 parts. Can anyone tell me what uniqueness is?
Is it like when they start off the debate talking about something completely random, then bringing it in?
No.
No? Okay.
A disadvantage is something that is not usually directly addressed by the case, like in the 1AC.
Because you don't know what the case is going to be.
But I wouldn't say most it's probably not going to come out of left field what exactly the disadvantage is. Usually you can have a good idea of what common disadvantages are to your plan. So uniqueness, what is it? Yeah, a statement on what's happening now, what's going on in the status quo, right? I know we've talked about this a little bit before, so this does seem repetitive. I'm sorry, it's always good to have a recap. Okay, so the link. What is the link? Okay.
How the plan changes the status quo, like what it does.
How the plan changes. And internal link. Gotcha.
Wait, so internal link is like how will it ties to the impact?
Yeah, so what the change in the status quo leads to.
Oh, like if like the plan causes like economic decline, then this part's like economic decline causes nuclear war.
Not quite. This is saying that an econ dissent is always a bad example to use for explaining all these 4 parts because when an econ dissent has an internal link, it's about like a specific sector or something. It's saying that it will hurt the defense industry, and then the defense industry is key to the economy, and then economic collapse causes nuclear war, which is the impact, right? So.
Can all these have more than one card?
Not usually in the 1NC, but a lot of times in the 2NC, you can use multiple cards to just attack it from a different angle, argue it from multiple points of view, just add on more evidence.
Why is the order uniqueness, internal link, impact, then link? Because link is how the plan changes it, and so it's like what's happening now, the plan changes it, and then it starts talking about all the bad stuff.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point to bring up that we're going to talk about how you debate a disad in the block, in the negative block, the 2NC and the 1NR. And that is pretty close to what you will do. But generally, you'll follow this order because it's just kind of, it's telling the story, right? Instead of just jumping straight to the bad part. And so it's good to tell the story of what would happen. So then we're talking about disadvantages. Yeah. Okay. So we're actually going to talk about how to do that now. So, like we said at the beginning, the point of a dissat is to prove that the negative consequences outweigh the positive consequences. So at the end of the day, what level of dissat do you think you need to win? Like, what do you think is the most important part of the dissat? Link. The impact. Generally, the impact. Because if you can win 1% chance that these things are true, if you win your impact is big enough, or likely enough, or fast enough, you should be able to win the debate. So, does everyone have this down?
No.
Okay.
So do advantages have uniqueness when determining
Yeah,
impact?
they do.
Yeah. And so you have to basically be like, oh, my impact outweighs.
Yeah, and all of these things are terms that you could use to apply to the advantage. We usually just don't say link when I don't know why. When we're talking about the app, we usually say something solves, right, instead of the link,
Oh.
right? Generally, I think it's just framing it in a more positive light, but it'd just be very weird to say, like, the link in my 1AC. It's, like, that's not a common term. I mean, it's not unheard of. If you said that, that would be fine, but usually talk a lot more about solvency, just like how the client is able to do what it wants to do. Okay.
Can a card be both uniqueness and link?
Yes. And in fact, the files produced for this camp, they often
That's
are.
what I thought.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be like uniqueness this card because it could also like at the end of the card it could also show like how the plan is changing.
That's not uncommon because usually someone who's saying like a link is like someone who's writing about like why like something that could happen, like if it happened it would be bad. So they would be saying that the thing that is happening now is good. So a lot of times they will include like a statement on uniqueness, like saying that it's high and good. Yes.
So they'll understand why you shouldn't go uniqueness internally and impact them.
Yes.
I don't know why you don't.
So what's happening now, how the plan changes it, you wouldn't really talk about what the, because you don't know what the change would be, right?
Oh, like how their plan changes it?
Yeah.
Then after impact, would you say counterplan? Or no?
That's a different off-case position. Okay, I'm gonna go over here. So, okay, so debating the disad in the block. This goes in a certain order. It's usually a very good idea to follow to get the most out of the disad. So, the debate happens, the 2AC will have some answers. Before the block happens, the 2NC, the 1NR, the negative will take some time and figure out what they think like the most strategic like disadvantages to take into the rest of the debate are. They might have read multiple, and they might decide to narrow down just one or two in the block to talk more about them. So, the first thing you should do if you're taking a disadvantage in the block is impact over. If you can't see from over there, feel free to shift over this way. But like we said, the point is to prove that the negative consequences outweigh the positive consequences. So an impact overview is you talking about the negative consequences and hyping them up to be like the world will end, right? If the plan happens, right? It is the biggest, the most terrible thing that could ever happen in the entirety of the world for us to stop selling arms to Saudi Arabia, right? So there are three ways to frame your impacts. Number one, magnitude. Can anyone tell me what magnitude means?
Scale?
Yeah, the scale. Yeah, the magnitude just means like it's a really big, right? In terms of debate, that usually comes across in the form of like body counts, global nuclear war, human extinction, right? everyone will die, right? So you want to win that the impact to your disad will lead to those world-ending consequences. Second, probability. So you would want to say that the impact is more likely to happen than your opponent's, right? So if you were arguing for an impact like global warming versus something like global nuclear war, you would say something like, well, we already have evidence that global warming is happening. We've kind of proven that's true. Whereas nuclear war, there's never been a nuclear exchange between countries, right? Maybe we've hit something a couple times. There's never been two countries that have nuked each other. It's just like there's never been a nuclear war. Never happened, right? No one has any interest in that happening. Whereas global warming, for example, you could say there are reasons why that is happening. It could continue to happen. Okay. 3 is time frame. Our impacts will happen faster than your impacts, right? So if our impacts were the outbreak of disease, or if our impacts were global nuclear war, you could say things like those things will spread really quickly. Nuclear war is just hitting a button, and then the world goes boom. Obviously not a realistic portrayal, but that's what you want to say in debate. So that's why I would go. Those things would be faster than global warming, which take forever, however long to actually do the same level of damage. Yeah.
Is the goal to use all three?
Yeah, you can. It's a good thing to kind of win that you're beating them on all of those levels.
If your impact is like the same, like you both say nuclear war, then you have to do all three.
Yeah, in that scenario, nuclear war, the scenarios for nuclear war might be different. So you would just be like, there's really not going to be a war, like a nuclear war in Latin America, even if there is a war, because those countries don't have nukes. Whereas a nuclear war in Asia between Russia and China is likely because they are nuclear armed powers, right? So you would talk about the distinctions, why it would be different, right? Or you could just talk about the internal links and just be like the scenarios that cause us to lead to the same impact are more likely, are bigger, or faster. Okay. I'm also just going to add on a bonus kind of thing here. When you're talking about your impacts, you're doing an impact overview. This is where these things are called impact calculus. You're describing your impacts and talking about why they're super bad and why they outweigh you from these impacts. A good argument to make is that it turns the impacts to the disad turn the case. Does anyone know what I mean by that? Oh, that's fine.
You told me to turn a couple of days ago.
That's okay. So turn case just means that the bad things that the app happens, the app say the bad things that the app says happen are actually come about as a result of the impacts of the disad. So what that means is, say we're talking about the defense industry disad, right? So the impact of that disad is hegemony, right? When we lose military strength, we stop being like the world's global policemen. We can't kind of put down conflicts when they happen. The world would erupt in chaos without U.S. military strength, right? That's the impact of the disad. So you would argue, if you were the negative, you would say that comes before any of the things that the affirmative has said, right? Because if the app isn't able to maintain military strength, the things that the app says happen only like get worse, and that's the scenario in which they come up with. So if we lose our military strength, we won't have credibility. If we lose military strength, we won't have the ability to stop a war breaking out between Iran and Saudi Arabia. If we lose military strength, we won't have the capability to stop the civil war happening in Yemen, right? So that's a reason why we should protect the defense industry at all costs, right? If we lost the defense industry, those negative consequences happen from the DISAD, then the app can't leverage the positive things that happen. Because those things that happen, solving those things, those would happen as a result of like doing, yeah, as a result of the DISAD. So, yes.
So definition is bad things mentioned in the affirmative actually comes from affirmative claim.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Okay. We'll have some examples about that. That can look like a lot of different things. You actually heard this argument in the demo debate that you had where like Mary Beth was here. So they argued that on the 2020 DISAD, they said that if a Democrat wins, we'll stop arms sales anyway, right? So if we need to make sure that a Democrat does win in 2020, which is the DISAD. So if the plan happens, a Democrat will lose in 2020. So that's the worst thing. Like, but if the plan doesn't happen, a Democrat will win. Well, if a Democrat does win, then we'll stop arms sales anyway, and the half can't leverage the positive consequences because it'll be the same result, right?
The same result, except now we have somebody who's not going to wreck everything else.
Yeah, except in this scenario we talked about like the Paris climate agreement. We would also have a Democrat who would keep us in Paris. What? I mean, they can't. You just, if you're taking a partisan position, you would have to defend it. Right?
I'm just saying, like, the fact that it's both sides are attacking Trump and being
That's not really like it. Like there are people who kind of go for the impact turn and just say that Trump is good. That's legit. I think I will say debate generally is like a left skewed activity. So most people do end up agreeing. Yeah, do take a left position. Okay. Impact overview. Does anyone have any questions about impact count or doing the impact overview? Cool. It's not unusual to read cards to prove these things, right? But it's not a necessity. Yeah.
Are there like also other like categories for
They like. What would you have something in mind?
not something in mind, but like I did a debate camp and we had like 6 different things for impact calculation.
These are the three big ones. I'm not sure what else there is. Yeah, if you think of one of them, let me know. But I think the fact that maybe that you can't is the reason that these are the three most important ones. Okay. All right.
Does
Everyone.
analytics for impact overview, is that like sufficient? Like to be like, oh, like,
So it can be sufficient. It just depends what you want to do, right? So a lot of times in the 1NR, you have the time and the preparation to put the cards in there and then still win the rest of the debate. So you might want to because it will just help prove your point. It's really up to you. Okay. Second thing. Go on the line by line. Anyone can't remember, or anyone tell me what that means? Yeah.
To go through each individual argument and then say why it wouldn't happen or why it's not good or it's bad or something like
So answering all of their arguments in order and then just categorically disproving them, right? So you know how the 2AC that we went over yesterday, just like on the case pages, we would go through, we would look at all of the negative arguments and just answer all of them in order. When you're debating a disadvantage in the block, the 2NC or 1NR, you just do the same things, categorically disproving all the things that the 2AC said. Right? The 2AC said this, they're wrong. 2AC said this, nope. 2AC said this, try again.
If you can't answer all of the arguments, what do you do?
Just say no, wrong.
If you can't answer all of the arguments, then the affirmative will probably really jump on that, right? We'll say, hey, they conceded this, and then they have the whole 1AR and 2AR to be like, this is the most important thing in the debate, right? So it's a really good thing to not do that, and that's the reason why the negative gets the strategic advantage of the block, where they can talk for 13 minutes straight, right? So it's pretty different. Like,
Wait, there's a
if you're dropping something in the negative block, one, if you do it in the 2NC, you can be like, oh no, I can just tell your partner and be like, I forgot to answer this, so you can answer it in the 1NR. That's totally fine. But yeah, generally, if you do line by line, you won't drop arguments like that.
There's a cross examination in between the 13 minutes.
Yeah.
So did you just address that in the cross-examination?
Well, if you were the app and you told the opponent, hey, you forgot to answer this, then they have a speech to answer it. So why would you tell them?
You could just roast them about it in the cross.
But then they would just answer it.
And they have a next
Yeah,
speech.
you would prefer if they forgot about it, right? Because then you could do that thing.
So you don't even just bring it. You don't even bring it up in the cross-examination because you want them to forget about it.
Yes. Yeah. Like when you're playing basketball, right? You don't just like let the team know, like, hey, we're gonna come up from the right and shoot, right? You just do it. Right? You don't give them a heads up. Okay. So you go line by line. And the ideal is to have multiple answers to all of the things that they say. So if they say that there's no link, you could even decide to read a new link to the affirmative that's just slightly nuanced. You could decide to, it's a really good idea to have multiple arguments, so that gives the 2NR, the last speech in the debate, a lot of options, so they don't feel like they're boxed in, like, oh shoot, I have to win this one argument, and if I don't, I lose. In fact, I actually have multiple arguments that I can choose from, which I think are the best and were answered as well by the affirmative, right? So, answering with multiple things gives the negative those options. So you can kind of see how it follows the same kind of structure as the 2AC. You have an overview about, in the 2AC, it's just like the things that they dropped, then you answer line by line. Always surefire formula to success. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, now I'm going to talk about how the 2AC will answer a disad. And they can do that in multiple ways. Has everyone got this one? Okay. Okay. So the ideal scenario in the 2AC is to answer every single level of the disad. That is not always realistic, given that the negative can make a lot of arguments in the 1NC that can require a lot of time from the 2AC to answer. But that's the ideal. But either way, you have a lot of ways that you can answer every level of the disad. So first, uniqueness. What do you all think is like a good way where you can challenge the uniqueness of the disad?
It's not unique.
Someone knows.
Smart.
Okay.
I'm just saying. I don't know what else the answer is. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not unique.
Say the status quo isn't as bad as they say it is.
Yes.
Yeah, just like they made a statement about the status quo, and we're saying that statement is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So let's take the defense industry dissad. The uniqueness for that would be that the defense industry is doing great now. Doing fine, making a lot of money, so got all the tools they have to project military dominance of the US. Yeah. Defense industry is strong now. A non-unique argument would just be saying like, nope, defense industry is doomed. They're not making any money.
All gonna die.
Well, generally everyone's saying we're all going to die
Yeah.
at most points of the debate. But it's saying the statement that you made is wrong for a number, like for any one of a number of reasons. So that might seem a little bit strange, right? Because the statement on the status quo is literally just like someone read the facts about what's happening, and then another team is just being like, well, those facts are wrong about what's happening. So it
Can
can
you
be,
say that they have outdated evidence?
yeah, so that you can attack their uniqueness evidence from multiple different ways. So one, you could just say it's too old and there have been more recent changes to that, which your evidence doesn't assume. Right? Second, you could say things that our evidence is predictive. So even if the defense industry is doing fine now, we know in a couple months that there's like the government's budget is going to go through, and it allocated like billions of dollars less to the defense industry, which will really hurt them. That's not a real thing that'll happen under the Trump administration, at least, but like it, you could say that there could be something else that happens in the future that will make sure that the defense industry is going to be weak, even if not now, but soon from now. Can anyone think of any other ways that they could like disprove the uniqueness of an argument?
Bring up like a country that is like has similar characteristics as the country that you're talking about, and say how well they're doing.
Yeah, so I would say just like you could appeal to empirics or historical trends, right? Their uniqueness evidence might be based on predictive evidence, right? And you could just be like, no, actually, historically, the defense industry usually goes low at this point of like an administration's term or something, right? It's proven in other countries. Okay, so there are, and you can argue about the merits of the different ways to evaluate. What I actually also mentioned was a thumper, and thumpers can be used at any level of the dissad, but this just means that there's something else that's going on in the world that means that is an alternative cause to what is happening now. So. Like the thing that I said about the budget is actually a thumper argument. So if we know that the defense industry is scheduled like a few months from now to like take a big hit in their earnings, that would be something that the plan does not resolve, has nothing to do with it. It's just an external factor to make sure that the defense industry is weak. Okay. On to the link.
You have to take out all of them.
No. But at least, definitely in the 2AC, it's good to make arguments on as many of them as you can. And typically in like the 2NR, the 2NR is about narrowing, picking your best arguments. So you might not be able to explain your best arguments if you're trying to get every single level of the dissent.
Is it common for the 1NR to take out all of them, like the uniqueness, like internal and impact?
The 1NR is taking the dissent needs to win all of those things.
Yeah.
Just because, like, if you lose an argument along the chain, then it means the rest of the chain doesn't have that. Okay. First thing is just, if they say there's a link, you say, no, there's not. Arms sales really don't matter to the defense industry. Who cares about it, Just I think there's a card in the file. It's just like it's a drop in the bucket for defense contractors. They have like lots more ways to make lots of money. No link. The affirmative could link turn to this ad. They could say, well, you said that arms sales actually help the defense industry. Turns out they actually hurt the defense industry for whatever reason, right? Or you said, actually it's the opposite effect that happens, right? Can anyone tell me the difference between these two things? How many?
No link is just saying it's just undermining of them, but a link turn is undermining them and boosting yourself.
What do we call that? We went over that. Yes. Which one is offensive?
No link is defensive. Link turn is offensive.
Correct. Awesome. Okay. This one's a little bit less common, but it's just that uniqueness overwhelms the link. So it's saying that the 2AC it might not actually make this move because you're conceding that the uniqueness that they've read is true. This argument just means that you're conceding that it's so true, it's overwhelmingly true, it will always be true, right? The defense industry is being strong is just like it is locked in to be the biggest part of like the American economy like, forever, right? So even if we were to end arms sales, doesn't matter like what is going on. So now there's so many other reasons, like so many reasons why the defense industry is going to be strong that they can kind of shield the damage that the link would cause by hurting it. Okay. The last thing is just a bumper. This argument is saying on the link level is saying that there's something else that happened that should have already triggered the link, right? So, say like somewhere along the line we decided to get rid of the Navy. That would probably hurt the defense industry quite a lot. So it's like, hey, turns out the Navy's gone, so the defense industry is kind of in shambles right now, right? So if the defense industry were ever going to lose a lot of money, there's something else that has already happened that would lead to that impact. So it doesn't matter if the plan can happen because we know it'll be fine. There's something else that should have triggered the link. So if your impacts were real, they would have already happened. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. So internally, really you can do the exact same thing. All of these things apply. Actually, you know what? I'm not, you can just put link/internal link here. And then the last level is just the impact. The app could say the impact that you say will happen, not a real thing, right? So an economic crisis will not lead to nuclear war. You know that from the demo debate that we watched on the TV, like from the I can't remember, but they were saying they just made an analytic argument that said in 2008, 2009 went through a huge economic crash, no nuclear wars, didn't really happen. Your
What
impact is empirically disproven. 2008 and 2009.
Was that global?
Yeah. It's a big deal. U.S. housing market crashed at the end of 2007.
Yeah, but like, was it global economic crisis or just like? I thought it was just in the U.S.
Because everybody's interdependent.
Yeah. It affected like everyone. So just a reason why the really bad thing they say happens doesn't happen. They can say global warming isn't real. They can say that nuclear war like has never happened, won't happen. They can say that disease won't kill everyone. Yeah, just bad thing happens, doesn't happen. And the last thing you could go for is an impact return. This is typically a bold strategy because generally strategic things are the negative to pick things that are very likely viewed to be bad, such as like a Middle East war or starting a war with China. The affirmative, if they wanted to, they could choose to say that those things are good. Right? We started a war with China, that's actually a good thing. Right? Because if we don't do it now, then 10 years from now, they'll beat us in the war.
So what if your opponents like they have a disadvantage and they also have like a counter plan and like their counter plan like somehow you find a way to say that the impact of like their disadvantage will like their counter plan will also have the same like your counter plan will like that impact will come out of their counter plan. Could you tie them together with that?
Yeah, that argument is called the counterplan links to the net benefit. So your arguing counterplan is a better course of action because it doesn't trigger the link to the disad. But an app could just you very easily say like, yes, it does. So yeah, that's because if the app wins that argument, there's no reason to prefer the counterplan, even if the negative wins that the link is true, right? Because then either one, there's no difference between them. There's no net reason to prefer one over the other. Okay. So when you're giving like a 2 and 0 or 1 in R and a disad, you can know to expect a lot of these arguments and have like be prepared, maybe even have blocks. Just know what you want to do to answer all of those. And you need to be prepared to defend your disad from multiple angles. Okay. Any questions about disadvantages? Anyone tell me what the point of a disadvantage is? Sophie.
It's so you have something like already prepared because you don't know what the case is going to be. So this can be like a little bit more planned out that just relates more to the resolution.
Yes. Yeah, that's a disadvantage. And then the reason the negative wins I would say most of the debates that are policy related, the negative wins because they win a disadvantage is true. It's at least a big part of it. Why is that the case?
Because you prove that negative advantages outweigh the positive advantages.
Correct. Yes. So you're proving that the negative consequences outweigh the consequences. The plan, you do that largely through impact calculus and the impact of the review, and just methodically proving all of your arguments are true along the way. So that's disadvantages. Yay. Okay. Now, Yasmin, do you actually want to hit stop on that thing? Okay. Now we're going to go into research time.
What do you mean, drone? You're